So today we're going to be taking a look at Chapter 4, Lesson 7, and we're going to be multiplying decimals. And we're going to be thinking about strategies that we can use to make sure that we've placed the decimal point correctly in our product. The first thing we're going to look at is estimation. Now, estimation is a really nice tool to use when we're working with a new concept because it helps us to look at our answer and have a better idea if we've done it correctly. In this case, we can also use estimation to help us to place our decimal point. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by, let's get our pen here. So we're going to start off by setting up our multiplication problem. 3 and 12/100 times 7 and 8/10. Now, when we multiply decimals, we don't have to worry about lining up the decimal because really we're just going to ignore these decimals for the time being. So let's start off by ignoring this decimal. We're going to multiply like we would normally multiply. So 8 times 2 is 16. We regroup our 1. Now we say 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Right? So make sure that we add up that regrouping. And then finally, 8 times 3 is 24. Just like when we regularly multiply, we're going to add a placeholder, right? Because this 7 is in a place that's 10 times greater than the 8. And now we're going to multiply everything times the 7. So we start with 7 times 2, which is 14. Regroup the 1. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. Didn't forget that time. That's always good. And then we finish it off by multiplying the 7 times this 3, which is 21. Now, just like when we would multiply regularly, we're going to add these two partial products together. 6 plus nothing is 6. 9 plus 4 is 13. 8 plus 4 is 12. Plus 1 more is also 13. And then 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4. 2 plus nothing is 2. So now we have to look at this number and see if we can figure out where should we put our decimal. Well, if I come back over here and I look at my original problem, I have 7 and 8/10 times 3. Well, I'm just going to do a basic front end estimation. I'm going to cross off these decimals and I'm just going to multiply the whole numbers. Well, 7 times 3 is 21. So if I look at my number over here, if I place my decimal here between the 4 and the 3, then that makes this number as close to this number as we can get it. So my answer is 24 and 336 thousandths. So that's one way that we can place our decimal is by using our estimate. In this case, it was 21 to place our decimal so that we end up with a 2 in the tens place, so that it's closest to our estimate as it can be. Let's try another way. So another method that we can use, and let's change back to our skinny thing. Oh, look, for some reason we're still red. That's okay. So another way that we can do this is we can, instead of doing our estimating, we can ignore the decimal, multiply as normal, right? This is what we would get if we multiplied 362 times 14. And then we just count out 2 places for the decimal here, and then 1 place for the decimal here. And 2 plus 1 is 3. So when I get down here to my answer, I need to move my decimal back in 3 places. 1, 2, 3. And I get 5 and 68 thousandths. Right? Again, if I want to use that estimating trick, I'm just going to get rid of my decimals and multiply my 2 whole numbers. 3 times 1 is 3. So by putting a decimal right here, I end up with a number in the ones place, 5, which is closest to 3. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Let's go ahead and practice some and put it to use. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one, and then you are going to help me out with the next 2. Right, I'm going to start off by moving this decimal out once, moving this decimal out once. So I've moved my decimal out 2 times. Now I'm ready to multiply. 4 times 9 is 36. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 3 is 31. Remember my placeholder. 3 times 9 is 27. My 2 up here. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 2 more is 23. I add these two together. The first number was a 6, even though it doesn't look like it. So we get 6. 7 plus 1 is 8. 3 plus 3 is 6. 2 plus nothing is 2. Again, I moved that decimal out twice, so I need to move it back in twice. My answer is 26 and 86 hundredths. All right, oops, not that. Let's get rid of that and let's move this. So now this one is a little bit different, right? Because here we have 2 decimal places on the top and just 1 on the bottom, and they have lined up the decimal. Now, we could do this and then just fill in this place with a 0, but to be honest, that's a lot more work than we need to do. So let's rewrite this and let's ignore our decimal. So we're not going to line it up, and we're going to multiply like we normally would. So let's ignore our decimals, right? That's there and there, but we're just going to pretend like they don't exist. We're just going to start like normal. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 4 is 49. 30 plus 4 is 34. Placeholder. 2 times 8 is 16. 2 times 9 is 18, plus 1 is 19. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 0, 15, 14, 7, 1. I'm going to check up here once, twice, and I'm going to move a third time. So now I'm going to move it back in 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. And my answer is 17 and 450 thousandths, or because this is a 0, right, I can just ignore it and say it's 17 and 45 hundredths. I have to keep that 0 in for moving my decimal place back into my answer because it does affect that. But once that decimal is placed, I can drop that 0. It's not going to matter. All right, last one, and we're just going to look at this one because here we have a number that doesn't have a whole number. So this really is not any different than what we've been doing. Again, you can see that they lined up the decimal, but we know that we don't have to. So oops, I wrote that in the wrong place. Let's just make sure that it's gone, right? So let's just put them like this and multiply. 45, oops, I'm getting all sorts of ahead of myself today. So let's start that one over. 5 times 9 is 45. That's 20 plus 4 is 24. And that's 5 plus 2, which is 7. Placeholder. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 times 4 plus 2 is 14. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Add all of this up. We don't need to multiply by this 0, right? Because all it would do, we'd put in 2 placeholders and then we would put in 3 zeros. I mean, that's not going to do us any good. We don't need to worry about that. So we're going to get rid of all of that foolishness. Now we're going to add 5 plus nothing is 5. 7 plus 4 is 11. 7 plus 4 plus 1 is 12. And 4 plus 1 is 5. I come back up here. I have 1 decimal place in my top number, and I have 2 decimal places in my bottom number. So I need to move it back in 1, 2, and 3 places. Now this one would be really hard to estimate to make sure that we had put it in the right spot. The key here is to remember that if we multiply a whole number, like 14, by a number that is just a decimal that's less than 1, our answer is going to be smaller. Right? So the only place we can put that decimal to get a smaller answer is here after the 5. If we put it after the 2, we'd get 52, which is more than 14. So we need to make sure we're placing it in the right place. All right, the last thing we're going to look at today is just a story problem to make sure that we understand how to recognize when we need to multiply decimals. Here it says a male leopard seal is measured and has a length of 2 8/10 meters. A male elephant seal is about 1 5/10 times as long. What length is the male elephant seal? So when I see times, first of all, that lets me know that I should probably multiply, right? And then it says 1 5/10 times as long. Well, as long as what? It's as long as a leopard seal. So I know that I get 2 8/10, and I need to multiply that times 1 5/10. So why don't you pause it, try this problem, and then come back and check and see how you did. All right, 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14. Placeholder, 1 times 28 is in fact 28. I add them together and I get 0, 12, and 4. Up here I have 1, 2 decimal places. So here I have 1, 2 decimal places. So the answer is 4 20 hundredths. But again, we can get rid of that 0 and just say that we have 4 2/10. All right, that's our lesson for today. Give the problems a try and let me know if you have any questions.